Okay, I think we should start. So first of all, apologies for a slightly later start. I think that opening plenary was just so interesting. I could have listened to everyone and asked more and more questions. I would just like to welcome everyone to REFA Festival 2021, and especially a warm welcome to our film screening of Schools Shut Down. I am delighted to introduce you all Neo Kgola. But before introducing Neo, I'd just like to encourage you all, introduce yourselves in the chat and ask questions using the Q&A function down below. So I'm going to introduce Neo and then we will watch her short film, Schools Shut Down. So Neo is a young filmmaker from Orange Farm near Johannesburg. She studied at the Big Fish School of Digital Film Production in Cape Town, and she currently works at the Pan-African Documentary Film Production School Social Transformation and Empowerment Projects. Neo's work has featured in the Encounters Documentary Film Festival and the Lens Flare Film Festival. In 2017, Neo won the Best Newcomer Award at the 48-Hour Film Project in Johannesburg. Neo, is there anything you'd like to say before we start?
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you. Thank you.
So Alice, we're nearly ready. I just need to find the documentary. Please let me.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, please let me know if it's appearing on that side. And then I'll just give it a start. Are ready to go?
Yeah, that looks great. Thank you.
Is it all clear?
Can you make it full screen, please?
Sure.
And then sound.
Sorry, is there no sound?
No.
Yeah, apologies. Is that better?
Still no sound on my side.
On your side, okay. My apologies for this. We have a solution. Is that better?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Igama lami ngibuhle ngokwamdluli ngihlala e-Orange Farm. Ngithi ngihlala nomamami ama-siblings wami ayi-4. Ngifunda eThetha Secondary School. Ngi-hard work. Like ukuthi imvula iyaba or kuyashisa or kuyabanda alikila like mangakubonisa ama-report wami unyaka wonke ngiya esikoleni alikho nelanga eliwane ngine-excuse yokuthi yoyi hasa mhlanje ngathi kuyasnow hayi thi ngilale ngizokuthatha esikoleni. No, every day isikolo. Ithe mayifika COVID like bebese basiphe ama-timetable okuthi so attenda ngama-holidays yabo bese kanjalo. Wathuka wonke umuntu esikoleni basitshela bathi kune-COVID kuzoba ne-lockdown ngizohlala emakhaya nama-timetable besiwabekile ekhohlwane ngawo sizonifonela like ziyavala iy'kole shutdown like yonke into abazali ngeke basaya emsebenzini yonke into saqala manje sawumoya sathi umuntu aze like nge-positive momentum kangaka ukuthi hayi man manje yazini sinqinisele ukugcina next year nje ngizibone ngikwenye level ale ndaba leyo corona is-affectile for sure ngeke sisaphinde sibuyele esikoleni asikhohlwe njengey'kole yabo. Okay, by that time bahlali bakhuluma ngama-online learning bakhuluma ngama-online learning like uyabona ukuthi thina bayi asina-access to i-internet asinamadatha asinagesi like nje bakhuluma i-online learning abanye abantwana from kwezinye iy'kolo bayenza ama-online learning lawa khona bayaqhubekela phambili thina sihleli nje asiyenzi next avele ngabona ngathi hayi like ngaba discouraged nje.
Ngize ngagcina sengithi mina kuye aka-attende i-afternoon class ngenyanga yambhadalela i-R100. Iy'fiso zami ukuthi aphumelele lo mntwana ngoba ugesi nawo futhi udonse ngapha next door. Ngacela nakhona ngapha next door ngathi ngicela ngoba unomntana uyenza grade 12 asinagesi ngoba ikhandlela li-dangerous. Ngicela at least ningidonsele kunentambo ihamba iqhamuka ngapha next door kamakhelwane ezongena la emuva just ukuthi kube ne-light.
To be honest, kunzima ukuthi like ngicela imali like nokubona ngithi mama mthenge ukudla athenge uthiwa azikushoda ini and nayi le R100 le ngizokupha yona iyo le engabe ngithenga nayo something so like yathasheka kancane yabo kube ngathi like ngiyamhlupha umamami like ngifakela i-stress ukuthi ngifuna imali. Ufuna ngikuthumile ufuna yakho ayithuma ngayina data has already depleted like bengekho aware.
We've managed to do it with the coronavirus. So make sure that you pull up your socks. I want what is best for you. I've always wanted that.
Have some, all right? Hey, bruh. I think. Ooh. Sharp.
Funa ngithenga amadatha bese ngihamba nge-internet cafe ukuthi like amadatha ngizothenga ukuthi ngingene ku-Google ngenze i-research yabo bese ngiya-internet cafe bese ngiyenza ama-print out iy'thombe nama-map. Ya ziyafuneka.
So bafuna mali
ngicabanga maybe amadatha lawo ngizowadinga hayi maybe 30 rand ngazimela zonke.
30 rand. Oh.
Like you better start writing like now because trigonometry, functions, quadratic, proportionality, theorem, cycle. Like we're not asking for too much. It's gonna J. Nobody has provided like at least see the access to Wi-Fi. Google says would say okay maybe a center nyana and I will local says would say Maya la paya so called to connect to Wi-Fi. As we say it's okay. No matter see it cool J. So as we know Wi-Fi la po would as we say because 2 times I should strive to be on top because at the point home it's overcrowded. So that means we would see pezu.
Wow, that was just, I mean, I've watched it a few times now, and I feel like I get something new every time. And I'm always just so struck by how much it's like such an intimate look into Butler's life, and into, it's like a small snapshot, but at the same time you seem to go so deep. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Yeah, I just want to say thank you. We'll wait for people to ask questions, so please put them into the Q&A. But I think from my side now, I want to know how is it? What is that process like, getting to know someone like Butler, like meeting her, and like becoming so intimate with her, if that question makes sense. What is that like for you as a filmmaker?
Thank you very much for that question. I mean, I think for me, it was basically about how we can relate to each other, because what she's going through, I could have went through the very same thing with internet connection and all of that. And the mere fact that we grew up in the sort of like same community, I think it made things easier for me to connect better with Buhle, because in all aspects of life, we come from same situations, really. So it was easy to connect with her. It was easy to even ask her and talk to her and ask her to even be part of the film. And I'm extremely grateful that she trusted me with her story, and she and her mom opened their home to me, especially in the most difficult time, which was during the COVID pandemic. So I'm extremely grateful for that. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So we have a question here. So an anonymous person has asked, can we have some more of your background there? What kind of work do you do? And how does that impact you as a filmmaker?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. So I am really passionate documentary filmmaker. My journey started back in 2016 when I just started a group of my friends, Octavia and Zweli Banzi, and a few more. We just basically went out to a community and started documenting and shooting stories. And I mean, at the time, we didn't even have any educational background. We were just passionate about stories in our area. So for me, I think that's where the love for documentary started, really, by just going out and talking to different people, using whether our cell phones or whichever small camera that we had, listening to people's stories. And from there, it grew and grew until it was, we all went to film school, and we could enhance our skills in a way. But otherwise, for me, what it really means to tell stories, or what it really means to be a documentary filmmaker, it gives me the opportunity to be a voice to other young people who really can't voice out their opinions. I mean, I grew up as a very shy person. So I think with documentary storytelling, I'm able to speak my voice, I'm able to connect to other people, I'm able to share my story by just sharing their story as well. So I think it helps me as well, as much as it helps them to speak out. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, and I really think you managed to capture Butler's voice really well there. And I think you've helped us connect with her, and that is what's coming up quite a bit in the chat here, is people want to know, where is Butler now? Are you able to tell us that? Was she able to receive a kind of like assistance beyond this, what she already had?
Okay, so with the kind of storytelling that I do, I'm constantly in contact with the people I make documentaries with. Just the other day, I was talking to Buhle. She is studying biomedical science at Wits. And with some of the issues highlighted here on the film, I think when she got to varsity, instead of things getting better, like she hoped, they actually got worse. Because now there are situations where the issue of access to gadgets or the issue of access to basic things to pursue your learning becomes even more difficult with the pressures of being in varsity, with the pressures of more work coming up. So when I was talking to her the other day, she was really just sharing and telling me how difficult it is to even finish or to even work, have full work, because she doesn't even have a laptop. She constantly have to use the Ver's laptop, which she needed to submit back to the school. So it really shows how this challenges or these issues of education, they escalate. When she moved to a different level, she thought that things will be better, but instead they get worse and the demand is bigger. Instead of just wanting data now it's the whole, I need a laptop to be able to do my work, to be able to learn, to be able to pursue my future in a way. So she is really still struggling, but as a persistent and hardworking girl that she is, she always makes sure that she pulls through despite all the challenges that she faces. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she really comes across as quite determined. So yeah, I'm sorry to hear that it is a challenge moving from the school space to the university space. And yeah, something that we often battle with is how can we close that gap, and how can we make it easier and more accessible? So Shannon here has asked, this film shows how the pandemic really highlighted inequality in South Africa. What are your opinions on how to change this so we can give students an education even with the challenges of pandemic, or in general access issues for schools? So it seems like Shannon's asking, yeah, how can we overcome these issues that we are speaking about? And I know you are coming from a stance as a filmmaker and not an economist, but I think part of what we spoke about in our opening event was how we should really broaden the discipline, and not just think from a purely, economics point of view.
I didn't get the question. What was the question? How can we?
It's the film shows how the pandemic really highlighted inequality in South Africa. What are your opinions on how to change this so we can give students an education even with the challenges of the pandemic?
I mean, I think for me, in my opinions, the pandemic really exposed the inequality that is happening. I think we are at a time where we've moved to the fourth industrial revolution. I think we shouldn't be really being worried about data or access to data. It should be, it's basically a need. And with people coming from communities like Orange Farm, what does this then mean? Does it mean they will be deprived their right to education simply because they don't have data access? I think the main thing is just to provide data. Like Buhle is saying, all that they need, it's just to have access to Wi-Fi so that they can pursue their education, because it doesn't make sense for schools to not have internet connection, or for schools to not have data, Wi-Fi systems, or even for communities like this to not have Wi-Fi. So for me, it's really just to open it up to say that Wi-Fi or internet connection should be available for everyone. That is just
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I really like your answer, and I think it. Bandile, are you waving at me?
Yes, I would like, you can't see me, so I'll switch the lights on, but I would like to ask a question, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. So thank you to Nell for the production. I would like to know a bit about the process of making this film. So kind of when did you come to conceptualize it? So yeah, you could say as much as you like, but when did you have the idea that this was a story worth telling? Did you need to brainstorm it with people? Did you need to get any sort of help from everybody? How did the film and editing, could you just take us on a journey and how the film was made? And then I'm also interested to hear about how it came to be under the AfriDocs name and some of the people that helped to produce the film.
Okay, so just to give a bit of background, the film was initially supposed to be a participatory film that we were going to do for STEPS. So it was filmmakers from Orange Farm at the time, which was myself, Octavia, and Zwelibanzi Chabalala. We went out into our community in the aims of us as filmmakers going out in the time of COVID-19 to see and observe how things were going in our community. So when we went out and came back and we started reflecting on our findings and reflecting on ourselves, the issue of education was the one thing that stood out, because coming from Orange Farm, and I think we live in a society where education is basically the key to success. And then when we were talking to a few young people in our community, the issue of data and how difficult it was to get access to education, how difficult it was to even get cell phones, to even get electricity, because at the time load shedding was a huge issue in our community. People will stay for like a couple of months without electricity. And as matriculants, it was more of a challenge because the pressures of finishing school, not only finishing school, but making sure that you pass your matric, because your entire future basically depends on that. So we sat down with the team and we started brainstorming in terms of like the issues of education during the time of COVID-19 and how young people in communities like Orange Farm are struggling, or how are they able to overcome these different challenges and barriers, even though they do not even have like the basics. And at the time, we should also remember that communities like Orange Farm, at the time of COVID-19, everyone was just thinking about taking care of their family, putting food on the table, especially because the unemployment rate got even higher. So data was just the last thing on a lot of parents' minds. But now that education was moving that way, it was almost like a shift. So in terms of brainstorming the story as well, I think I'll take this opportunity to thank everyone who helped with the film, Dawn Atkins, Toliswa Sitole, Tiny Mungwe, Berry Han, and a lot of people from the STEPS team that helped to really make this film what it is today. And how it got to AfriDocs, I work at STEPS and I do a lot of AfriDocs work, which gives me also the opportunity to watch a lot of films and a lot of documentaries. I do a lot of social media. So with STEPS being the main place where the film started, AfriDocs was sort of like a distribution platform for the film to basically open up conversations around these kinds of issues. So in terms of brainstorming, the team basically made it possible.
Sure. So you say you're based at STEPS. Could you say a bit more about what? Yeah, could you say a bit more about what STEPS does and perhaps its vision and maybe how people can get involved?
Sorry, you got cut.
Sorry about that. Could you say a bit more about STEPS and what it does?
Okay, so basically STEPS is a non-profit organization passionate about the power of documentary stories to empower, to educate, and basically to give a voice to disadvantaged communities and to start up conversations around the most important issues of our times. So this is like in a nutshell what the organization does. And then AfriDocs is an online platform that showcases different documentaries around the continent. It's almost like you have a festival in the palm of your hands. So it's a platform for documentaries, basically, yeah.
Yeah, I had a look at AfriDocs and I put the link in the chat for those who want to go and have a look. I found it such a fabulous resource. So thank you so much for putting that out there. There is a question here from Amara who asks, towards the end of the film, Buhle says something like, we are just asking for Wi-Fi. Is there a sense within the Orange Farm community of like being let down in terms of they're neglecting to provide connectivity access? That schools, yeah.
I mean, with that, thank you very much for that question. I mean, with that question, it's not like it's not entirely there, but it's the thing of, can people access it? Because we have libraries that have internet connection, and sometimes people just stand outside to just connect to the library. Even at schools, I feel like some schools have, it's just that students don't really have access to the internet, to the Wi-Fi, either the Wi-Fi passwords, but it's very limited. It's very limited because you could find this one school has it, and then some schools it's not very operational. It's something that is not really taken seriously. So yeah, and for someone like Buhle, the library is way far from where she is. It will probably be a 1 hour or a 1 hour 30 minutes walk to go to the library to do her work. So that was not even an option, because first of all, she comes late from school, or rather the time that she spends traveling to the library and back, it's a lot and it's way draining. And with the COVID pandemic, all these places were completely shut down, they were completely closed. So she couldn't even go there, because even if she was forced to go there, then that will mean she'll just be outside the library and not really having access because it was closed. So it's just a lot of issues that the film highlights and talks about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, you know, it links, people are asking, you know, like what needs to be done? And it really sounds like data and Wi-Fi and connectivity are really big issues. I want to encourage our attendees to put up your hand if you want to speak yourself, or ask a couple more questions in the Q&A. Don't be shy to ask. I think we have such an amazing opportunity now to ask Nero these questions and to discover a little bit more about, you know, the filmmaking process or what life in Orange Farm was like during 2020.
Was that a question on the issue of data?
It was an encouragement to
Okay.
yeah, to the attendees to ask some questions. Okay. So Amara, I see you've posted in the chat here. Would you like to ask your question out loud? I see, yeah, we have Bandiela, if you can please unmute Amara.
Okay, sure.
Hi, can you?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I think it's been really great to watch the film and then have the chance to ask questions immediately after. This is a really nice experience. So Neo, firstly, thank you so much for, you know, being so open and honest with all of your answers. It was actually a point that Dikeleri brought up about, Dikeleri said, I like the fact that you allowed Buhle and her mother to express themselves in isiZulu. And I think, as someone who speaks English as my home language, I am very much aware that it's like should be impossible to live in South Africa and not speak Zulu, at least. So I really enjoyed that. And I guess what I'm asking is, was that purely just made because that's the language that Buhle and her mom prefer to speak in? Or is it also, you know, an attempt to get people to engage more with languages that are not just purely English? And I know it's funny because I'm asking this question in English, but yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect as well.
Thank you very much for that question. I think for me, when we're talking of documentary, you want to keep it as authentic as possible. And as that is their home language, they're able to express themselves easier when they're speaking their own language. And I mean, for me, them speaking English was not even like an option or what I thought about. The main thing was to get them as comfortable as possible and to not even look into their camera, to just be there in their space. So what we wanted to do was to give a very observational feel so that you as audiences also can feel and be part of their environment and be part of their day-to-day life, and also not even feel that the camera is there, but rather to feel what they're feeling, to go through what they're feeling in a very observational way. And the only way to achieve that is by them being themselves throughout. So yeah.
Alice, if you don't mind, can I ask another question? It's another question focused on your work as a filmmaker. So this documentary talks about Buhle's experience and how COVID affected her. I would like to know your experience as a filmmaker, and how the pandemic has affected you. Sort of maybe it had serious effects during lockdown, but also we know kind of like the the artistic and creative economy is battling to come back. So yourself as a filmmaker, yourself as a creative, and the communities around you. What are some of the things that have stuck out about how COVID has affected you guys? And then also as a filmmaker, as a creative, as someone who's in a creative economy, what are some of the things that you would like to be done, or ways that you see solution in the future?
Thank you very much. I mean, I think with the COVID pandemic, it really affected a lot. And with the film industry, it was like double the effect, because now we are really living in this new way. We have to kind of like adjust to this new way of doing things and to be cautious at all times. And I think a lot of people lost their jobs during this time, because now you can't even have this big film sets where people are filming and are just doing the work that they need to do, but rather they had to make some more adjustments. So I think with the COVID-19, it really did affect a lot of things. You had to be cautious, you have to be to not only think about yourself, but think about the next person, to look at it. Even with the filming of Boucher's film on set, it was, I must say, it was really intensively difficult, because now we are in someone's space and we can't really think about ourselves, but to think about the environment that we are in, to think about protecting our surroundings as well, to constantly be wearing our masks and social distancing, which was difficult at the time. But I think with the times that we are living in, it's just a matter of adjusting and finding ways to really work around it, because honestly, there's really nothing much we can do to maybe stop the pandemic, because it is here. But it's a matter of adjusting and making sure that you're not selfish, but then you protect not only yourself but others, like maintaining wearing of your masks, social distancing, sanitizing wherever you, with whatever that you touched, which was what we were doing when we were filming Boucher's story. Everything that we touched, we made sure that we were very strict and cautious about everything. It was difficult though. It was really difficult. It's just a matter of adjusting, because this is our new normal now. So yeah.
And following up briefly, are there, I don't know, are there any sort of future plans in terms of, especially with documentary makers? Has the government come in to support you? What is it looking like in the future? And if there are none, that's all right. If there are none that you're aware of, but I'm just interested to find out that in the future, maybe in a year's time, or what assistance is there out there for filmmakers?
The few ones that I can mention, I know that the NAVF really supports filmmakers, even documentary filmmakers. The Documentary Filmmakers Association, which is a group, a community of documentary filmmakers where opportunities on documentary are being shared there. It's a platform to meet other documentary filmmakers and to just connect with other documentary filmmakers. I know the GFC as well supports documentaries too. So it's just the different platforms that one can consider, but definitely the Documentary Filmmakers Association, it's very helpful, especially in the documentary space. And what I'm currently working on, I am developing a short documentary called Rakunwana Maloba that basically seek to unpack the issues of identity, culture, and what it means to be a South African in 2021 and what it meant to be a South African back in the 80s. So it's a journey with an 80-year-old who is basically out there to devoted her life to share and to basically teach the younger generation on their roots and their culture. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Well, that documentary sounds, I mean, absolutely amazing. Yeah, so good luck with that. We have another question here. David, please put up your hand if you'd like to ask this out loud. Okay. So David has asked, you brought the issue of education being seen as a way of success. I'm wondering whether there's willingness, especially for those that manage to attain education, to come back to areas such as Orange Farm to contribute within the communities. Or is education only viewed as a way to kind of get out of Orange Farm and not develop it?
I think for me personally, it's definitely about developing. That's why with everything that I do, I constantly go back to my community. I tell stories from my community because that's just what I can do to help develop my community, by just telling the stories and opening up conversations like this and saying, look, this area, this Orange Farm, we really need access to internet connection, because our education relies on it. If we don't have this, how can we get help? And it is through these stories that I can really just share and build more opportunities, and not just say, okay, now I'm leaving, now I'm going, I got my education, so I'm not a part of Orange Farm anymore. They'll say, no, for me, it's really just going back and making sure that development actually happens and not just abandoning it, because that's where I grew up, that's where I come from. I really want to see it develop. I really want to, or wish that it could be a place where even in future my kids can grow up in and have access to all of these things that we get outside of communities like Orange Farm. So for me, it's really just continuously going back and making sure that development happens, because this is the only way change will happen. And it is through my documentaries that I'm able to impact or make change or influence change.
I think the way in which you handle Orange Farm, the community, it shows that you really do care about the community and making a change. So yeah, I think that's brilliant. There is another question here by an anonymous, wondering about the vaccine rollout in Orange Farm. I feel like you've become an Orange Farm spokesperson. But if that is something you can, if you can speak to, or feel comfortable speaking about, I know it's a bit of a topic.
Yeah, it's a bit of a big topic, but what I can say in terms of that, I think there's still a lot more education that needs to be given, because people don't really understand why, especially with the death rates increasing and all of that. And sometimes some of the influential people die after vaccination. So people are just really scared, and they need to understand what it means to get the vaccine or to get vaccinated. And if education, or if the necessary, basically, yeah, if the necessary if people are being educated on this in a way that they can understand it better, I think it will be way easier. But I do know that there are centers where they are vaccinating, and a lot of people are getting vaccinated. But again, like I'm saying, most people are actually scared of doing this because they don't understand what it means. But yeah, there are parts of Orange Farm where the vaccine rollout or the vaccine jabs can be accessed. It's more like a 50-50 thing. Some go, but some are just completely confused and they don't understand why. So there's a lot of education that needs to be taken to this kind of communities to make people understand the need to get vaccinated.
Yeah, I think that is a challenge that we have at the moment, is there is so much information and misinformation, and people taking like cattle deworming pills and essential oils, and I think we're veering now into COVID whatnot, so we're going to come back to, I think, the importance of filmmaking in spreading correct information and being able to promote ideas and topics. And so films such as School Shut Down really just showing how important education is and how people value education. But Bandile, do you have a question?
I think I do have a question, but I'll just encourage people to ask their final questions, because yeah, if there are no questions, it's always okay to kind of bring the conversation to a close. I think that's fine. So I really encourage people to really get out your final questions here. But I was, and you can hear in the question I'm about to ask, it's similar to the one before, but are there any sort of, could you say just a bit more about your forthcoming documentary, what you're thinking about it, if you're allowed to say stuff, and then secondly, is there any, so that's one question about your documentary, but is there any sort of, if us as the people on this call want to be more engaged with, like, I'll say the documentary scene, you know, what are great places to check out? I think it might be just, are there any documentary festivals that come up regularly? What are some of the things that we can do to stay plugged into kind of this documentary filmmaking space? So your future work and what to look for in the space.
I think there are really a lot of platforms for documentary. For instance, the AfriDocs is a great platform where one can just get to watch films from across the continent. And like I mentioned earlier, DFA, the Documentary Filmmakers Association, is one platform where if you want to really get engaged and connected with the community, with the documentary community, that is the way to go. And then there are festivals like the Encounters Festival, which is a festival for documentaries, and like most festivals really give documentaries a platform. Even with the deaf, like Schools Shut Down now has been screened on the big platforms of Encounters Deaf, and now it's going to be showing on the Josie Film Festival. So in terms of festivals, there's really no limit because they do cater for documentaries as well. I can't remember your first question.
The first question was then to say, you hinted at your own future documentary, the one on identity. And I think both Alice and I think others were interested on that topic. So are you allowed to say more about it? What are you thinking of? Can you just let us know a bit more about that?
I mean, for now, it's just on the development stages. We've just acquired the NAVF funding, so we are still brainstorming more on how we're going to go about it, how we're going to make a compelling film that relates not only to South African audiences, but then to audiences out of South Africa. So for now, it's really just on development or script development phases. There's really nothing much to share because we are starting. It's on the beginning stages of it, yeah. Conceptualizing and how we're going to go about it.
Amazing, thank you. Yeah, we look forward to seeing your work, and I think, yeah, I think you're going to do amazing things. All right, I don't know, are there any further questions? Just checking the chat here. Okay. Just in closing, Neo, would you like to promote ways we can follow you, or so we've spoken about AfriDocs and steps, if there's a way that we can follow and support your work, if you'd like to promote anything.
I think firstly, before I would like to take this opportunity to really thank STEPS, the PSI, the WFD, the HBCC, the UK8, and all the other funders that made Schools Shut Down possible. The support from Dawn Atkins, Kgola Sitola, I think I mentioned them earlier, but then I cannot stop thanking them, because if it wasn't because of all of them, this film wouldn't have been possible. I think also a shout out thank you to Buhle, Mdluli, Mam Tolagele Mdluli, and Tembelihle Nhlanhla, the people who were involved in the making of the film and were open and trusting me into sharing and telling their stories. I think I'll just thank them as well, because if it wasn't for them, this film wasn't going to even exist. So I am really, really, really grateful for everyone who was part of the making of the film. And where you can find me on Instagram, I am, on Twitter, I am Kastarine _Kgola. And then on Facebook is Kastarine Kgola, and then on Instagram it's just Reen _Kgola. And yes, please make sure that you tune into AfriDocs. It's really an amazing platform where you can get to watch the most amazing documentaries from across the continent. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, we still have Alice. Okay, cool. I thought we lost you for a moment there, Alice. But I think perhaps you could just promote the rest of the festival, and it's okay to wrap it up.
Yeah, sure. It's the end of the month Wi-Fi. Yeah, thank you, Neo, so much. It has been such a privilege to be able to share your film and to ask you questions and pick your brain and hear more about your experience and your thoughts. Yeah, rest of the festival, there will be the link in the chat to where you can sign up for more sessions. There's 4 streams and 4 sessions and it's just going to be the most amazing next 2 days of fabulous lectures and thinking and whatnot. Vanilla, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Nothing more from my side. Please just keep visiting our website as we give more information about the festival. Strictly speaking, the festival is not just these next 3 days. For our university students, there's another component, which is the convenings. And then we also would love to be in touch with people. So please don't see this as a one-off. We will let you know about further documentaries that we've organized, which we're going to allow for some portions of their screening. And so we just encourage people to stay engaged with REFA. But I think that's it from me.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. And have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.